A very quick summary of my view is biologically, scientifically, at this point, I don't believe in free will because I don't yet see the room for the Kausasui. That's like that's like I think the key here is do I see a room for that in consciousness? Right now I don't. But that being said, totally disagree with Liam. I do agree with Brendan and Finian that like you just living life believing that free will doesn't exist is just I don't think a good way to live my life. And there's this guy.
You do live your life. You just said that you don't believe that free will exists. Oh, you're saying live it like
belief versus fact.
Correct.
Yeah.
Belief versus fact. That's the distinction I'm making.
Sorry.
No, all good. And yeah, so there's this guy, Robert Sapolsky. He's like a neuroscientist. He's written some books. He's like one of the biggest modern proponents for the no free will argument. And I was listening to a podcast with Neil deGrasse Tyson, whatever, and he was saying he was like 13 when he realized free will cannot exist. And he's like, from the time that I was 13 to now, I maybe have been able to actually live my day believing that it didn't exist like a couple times. He's like, even though I know it doesn't exist, I cannot live really my life like that. We have built society so heavily upon the idea that free will does exist that it's so hard to live your life as if it doesn't. Live your life as if you're making no decisions. Live your life as if nobody in the entire world is doing anything that they have any control over. I think it's so impossible to live like that.
Well, okay, where is what I'm saying you should do different than what you guys are saying we should do with that? Like, where does my lack of belief for free will in day-to-day, where does that actually differ? Because we should define
entire
that.
thing.
Well, what I think we're saying
give
is...
a specific example. Give an example of something that happens and how I would respond to it differently than you guys based on this belief.
Well, because I think we agree in fact. I think it's the belief system is where we're diverging.
Do we? Because I know that the two of us believe in fact, and I think that you believe...
I'm down with the biological explanation.
Whoa. So
that's what I was saying.
I think at this point, the three of us...
I'm the same thing with the Kausasui.
Yeah.
Is I would love to throw it in there, but I don't yet have an answer of where it would go.
Yeah.
If we can throw it in there, I think that's cool. That makes things so much more interesting.
Yeah. Totally.
But I don't yet have the answer of where it goes.
So I think that from a scientific standpoint, the three of us agree that free will doesn't exist.
If I've got to put my foot down, I'd have to stand on this side.
So, Finian, it's 3v1.
I know.
Well, actually, should we answer Liam's question first, or
what? Yeah, sure. Where does it actually affect in the day-to-day?
So, just to recap, do you go through your day-to-day life thinking that free will doesn't exist?
Well, I've pretty much always tried to live as compassionately as possible, so I don't know.
I don't think that's the answer to the question.
That's not answering the question.
You can be compassionate and have free will. I don't think these things...
They're not mutually exclusive.
Let me finish my point. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
The basis of a lot of my decisions are from this philosophy. I think most of my decisions in life stem from it, and I think the things that I do or I disagree with later, I'm like, shoot, I wish I didn't do that, are mostly when I actually deviate from it. Mostly when I have an interaction with someone where I act irrationally or emotionally and I do something I regret, those are the times that I actually think I deviate from my free will position, and those are the things that I regret the most. So actually, I'd argue that most of my life I do live as though there's no free will.
Interesting.
When I actually get emotional, I get hot, and I get like in the moment, I'm like, he really pissed me off there. Like, and now he's being a dick about it, and now he keeps going on it, and now he's getting in my face. Like, and maybe I make a decision. I don't get in fights, so this isn't great. But
you make a decision?
But like maybe I say something I can later on.
You just said you make a decision, dude.
Well, I think that's where we get into the structural concept of society's based in free will.
Yeah, but I think we've come to the agreement, like making a decision from the biological standpoint just means my brain has made a decision. So that's always what I'm going to mean when I say just make a decision.
By saying making a decision, like choice, we
that's
can agree
just the vocabulary that exists.
Okay.
No, but I just want to put it back in you guys again. where is what I'm saying actually different day to day from what you guys are doing?
think
You can say,
everywhere.
you keep saying that, Ben. Can you give me an example? Sorry, but like,
Yeah, sure. Let's say you don't study for an exam and you get a bad grade. In your perspective, you'd be like, oh man, nothing I could have done about it. In my perspective.
that's not my perspective.
Okay, so then what's your perspective?
My perspective is, shoot, there was an error in the process that led me to not studying as much. I should study more next time.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So you're saying there's an unknown quantity or qualifier in the process.
Right. The process made an error. Let's update the process so that it works better and it
How do
studies
you
better
update the
next time.
process?
How do you know what
Just
the
thinking
error
about
is?
it.
You can just
I don't know.
manifest
I don't know how to tinker around in the brain, but I know that the brain is able to learn and update. That's something I think we can. The three of us, if we're agreeing on a biological basis of no free will, then we can agree that the brain can biologically update and repair itself based on stuff. And I can biologically make decisions that update my brain. Like it's like a recursive process there from that standpoint. I think we can all agree that that can all happen without there being free will. I thought that's what we agreed on.
Well, I was mostly just agreeing in the fact that this is based in like a physical process, and it is controlled and regulated through these different chemicals and systems and circuits. Not necessarily that it's like, I'm reprogramming myself.
Well, then what are you doing whenever you learn
Well,
something?
no. I am saying there is an adaptation, but I don't know. Something about your explanation doesn't click. And I
think it's
haven't
uncomfortable for
yet
people.
crafted the response that I'd like to give. Your explanation feels fallacious.
I think I know what's going on here. Let me get to the bottom of this.
Okay.
I like it. I love it.
I think that. Okay, I think that Liam and the three of us disagree with like what it means to live your life in the camp of free will versus no free will, because from Liam's perspective, I think that like functionally, Liam still behaves the same way that we do, but we attribute it as us choosing, and he attributes it as his brain doing biological stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's what the deal is, right? I think like we kind of effectively live the same way, but you just attribute it to a biological thing, and we attribute it to like our consciousness, so to speak.
Right. So if I'm able to attribute it to a biological thing, where does the free will come in to help?
So then,
where does the belief in free will help your lives different from mine if I'm able to live the same way without it?
Now I think there isn't a difference, because as long as you're thinking in the way that your brain is going to update, and you're still, I think the key is putting blame. I think that the key is putting blame on yourself, putting blame on others where appropriate. And I think that if you can do that through your own philosophy, it doesn't actually matter whether or not that comes from biological or where that comes from consciousness in your perspective. I think that they can be functionally the same thing.
And I absolutely. And I'd say, okay, you're placing blame. If you're able to even see, like, okay, you've blame comes to help with the process of updating, like to say, okay, there was a problem here, we should fix that. And maybe that's a mental thought, maybe your subconscious does that. I don't think that really matters. This basically, something needs to change, something went wrong. If you can then take a step back and say, okay, that's great, let's work on that. But that problem that needs to be fixed still just came out of all the circumstances that led me here. And so that's nice, that's relaxing. That's almost like you can have that. You can have that and say you need to fix that. You can do everything you need to fix that. But then you can also take a step back and take a breath of air and say, oh wow, but that still just happened as a product of everything. And that's nice. And you can use that to say, well, I still have tons of compassion for myself. I think that's where you
that's where the difference comes in.
That's where the empathy comes in my opinion.
I'm going to say something crazy here.
Let's hear it.
I'm sort of in the same camp as Liam.
That is crazy.
That is crazy.
I do live day-to-day life. I think of me as a person as three different people.
Ooh.
Is this gonna be id, super
Do they have names?
ego situation?
No.
Brian.
Like they're all they're all me, but there's the past, the now, and the future.
Interesting.
I know all the things that I chose to do in the past that has led me here. So I don't live with like any regrets about what I've done.
Okay.
Because I know all the circumstances around what I did, and I know the choice that I took with the information at the time.
Okay.
And I live my life trying to make the best choices with the current information that I have, with the understanding that my future self will know what, like, the circumstances around the choice.
And this is where something that in my personal philosophy, diverging from, the science talk that we've had, just
Science.
yeah, well, we've been getting into this quote unquote neuroscience, but I'm just being like pure personal philosophy. Is the kind of the credo of like live without regrets is something that I've tried to kind of push on myself. Is like this is something that I need to make as a vital part of myself. I saw an interesting reference that I thought of instantly when Finian was talking is there's only two people that you need to make happy in your life, and that's 70-year-old you and 7-year-old you.
Wow.
Like at the culmination of your life, you'll probably have lived the most complete life if those two people are happy.
I can do that. Yeah.
Wait. Interesting. Expand on that, please.
Yeah.
Well, it's the concept of like, you have no regrets at 70, yet you've also fulfilled these wonderful delusions of a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
And I think it's
essentially pursuing your dream.
Well, yes, and that's where I talked about ambition, but I think there's almost a certain degree of delusion that's important. You need to kind of delude yourself because there's such power in just doing things. The ability, some people say like, manifest and all that, but it's like the ability, you can create your own opportunities and you can pave your own path. You can achieve your dreams. It's just whether you do. A quote that I really love, and I don't have it out on me word for word, but it's from Chris Bumstead. He's, 7-time Olympia bodybuilding champion. He said it on a podcast, and it was that like whatever your dream is, you tell yourself it's too hard, and then you realize it's not too hard. You just that you've told yourself that it's impossible, but then you realize it's not impossible. It's just really hard, but you're not willing to realize that you are unwilling to put in the work that it requires. So you lie to yourself that it's impossible rather than struggling to achieve your dream. You lie to yourself. You're not willing to put in this effort. And everything is possible. It's just how much you're willing to sacrifice and how much you're willing to put in. But you can achieve what you want to achieve. Some of them just might take ridiculous sacrifice that is impossible for the average person. Like it is really hard. You're going to have to struggle and sacrifice, and you're not going to be able to live the life of your peers if you want to, I don't know, do something insane. And it's the realization is like you need to, I think, to live without regrets, you need to realize that everything is possible. You can do what you want. You can create your opportunities. I've experienced great things through just going out and reaching out to people. Like you can just reach out to people and do great things. People are willing to help you. People want to reciprocate.
That was beautiful.
Yeah.
Really like that.
And I think like another piece of that is I think it's all sort of probabilistic. So like you can have a great dream, you can do everything right to get there, and you can still fail to get there. Right? Because that's just part of probability. So then what do you do with that?
Keep going.
You just keep going.
Because
But do you hold content towards yourself for not making your dream? Yeah.
I wouldn't because of the way I live.
You tried your best.
Yeah, I know given the information that I had at the time, I made the right choice.
Sure.
but I can also keep trying.
You can also keep trying if that's what you decide to
fall, you can fall from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows. That doesn't mean you can climb back. You are unable to climb back up.
Sure.
Just because you suffer, some event, you can put in all the effort as Finian keeps putting it, with all of the knowledge that I have, I believe that I have done everything as well as I can, but I still fail. That doesn't mean I can't do better. I know more now.
Mm-hmm.
I am able to do more. All I strive to be is the best me.
Sure.
I want to be the most intelligent, the most capable, the most friendly, the most well-rounded, the most present, the happiest.
The quest for knowledge about how to be your best you.
Eudaimonia, as Aristotle put it. The end of all ends.
Just to bring things back real quick, if I don't know if I've exhausted this
to the
point,
future.
but if we take that again, where does the way I'm saying you should live your life, where does that actually deviate from you guys? Because I don't have any deviations from what Brendan
I don't
just
think
said.
you and I
So then
have that much deviation.
Where's the point of content? I'm basically saying, okay, we agree that there's no biological, there's not really a biological argument for free will.
Mindset.
So it's a mindset, and yet my mindset of no free will allows me to live a life
They're
that's
different, not wrong.
But where's the difference? That's what I'm saying. Where's the difference?
It's
In actual living day to day, where's the difference in decisions? That's what
it's
I'm
a difference in
keep asking
how
for.
we view things, not how we treat or respond to things.
But then
Just
why? But
because
then why is
you
the
can
why
look
is
at
the
two things
viewpoint
differently and
integral? Why
respond
is the
the same
viewpoint
way.
really important then? If it leads to the same
Was it?
Can I chime in here?
Yeah.
I think that there are multiple viewpoints that you can assume within the no free will viewpoint. Liam takes one that effectively is very similar, or if not the same as the one that we take. The other viewpoint that you could take within that same umbrella is that you're totally passive, nothing matters.
Yeah,
right?
that would be stupid.
Which you don't live
That's
like
your-
that,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I think that effectively you live in the same way, but if you took it to the extreme of the no free will, then that's where I think it's bad.
And I think that's perfect because what it shows is that you guys assume that not having free will comes with all these other things, like a lack of ambition, a lack of changing, a lack of self-responsibility. What I'm trying to show is that those concepts actually exist outside of whether free will is real or not. I'm trying to say that I can live a life with all those things without believing there's free will. And that's by doing that, I'm trying to show that free will is actually not even a part of those things. It doesn't actually need to be a part of them. I'm saying I think those are just independent concepts. I think this thing you're calling free will is like a separate concept that tries to take responsibility for all these things, like responsibility and actually getting things done. And I'm trying to say, I actually don't think it is. I think we're attributing those things, but I think when you actually strip it away like I'm doing, you can see that it's not actually needed. And that's why I'm asking, can we find any points where my lack of thinking free will, does that actually hinder lifestyle? And I'm saying we can't find any.
Yes, I would say the core philosophy does not hinder life. It's how you treat it, like Ben was saying. It's you've come at it, as you mentioned many times, from the standpoint of compassion. You're trying to minimize suffering. You can realize that we're all just people doing stuff, and it's like, and that's where it's just I like to view life with a similar viewpoint, yet from the camp of free will. That makes more sense to me logically.
Sure.
Is that we experience this breadth of emotion, the highest of highs, the lowest of low, through these choices we make, rather than, I want to treat people equally because we're all in it together as, just people experiencing stuff. I like it as, we're all people, we've made these choices, we've come together. We can choose, we can grow, we can choose to be better.
And I just sorry, one more thing. I keep hitting this, but like what I'm basically trying to get at is that we can live the same life, but with different opinions on this core belief of whether believing free will is real or not.
Yes.
Actually affects your life. If we can live the same life without that idea, then I could ask you this. Well, what happens if you go free will maximalist? I think you end up with religion. I think you end up with, if you have sin, you deserve to die or to rot forever in hell. I think that is ultimately where that goes. So if you look on one side, you have, there's no free will. Therefore, yeah, you should be compassionate to everyone and empathetic. Doesn't matter what people do, you can still find ways to be empathetic for them. I think you look at you go the complete opposite side and you get to everyone's responsible for what they do. You deserve to rot in hell if you do something bad. Why would you want to be anywhere closer to that on that spectrum? What if you strip all that away? I'm saying if you're still able to live a successful, happy life with all the things that you guys like to do, but without any of the dogma, without any of the good and bad, evil and sin or not sin, if you're able to strip all that out and it still works, why would you want any of that? Why would you want to be any closer to this heaven and hell camp than you need to be?
Because on the other side is a cold, unfeeling world of no emotion where nothing matters.
Mm-hmm.
As Ben was saying, the extreme of no free will is a dystopia of absolutely nothing matters. There's no point to life. We shouldn't even bother.
Yeah, I agree with all those things though.
So then,
You agree with him?
Yeah, I don't. I
Yeah,
think.
so-
I think. I think.
so
I
you
think.
live
I
in a
think. I think the life that it.
world.
I don't think
of-
so. No, I have lots of emotions. I have happiness. I have sadness, and they're all just part of a cycle of life that I'm just like, oh, that's great. It doesn't have to mean anything to me. The meaning is
Meaningless?
meaningless. That's where I'd go with it again, and I'd say I don't actually think there needs to be meaning to have happiness and sadness, to have responsibility and lack of responsibility. Like there's almost like a little humility that comes in it, just being like, well, okay, it's all pretty pointless, right? Like we can do great things, and I can
Nihilism.
strive for great things.
And I think
yeah.
that's naive of you.
It might be.
to think of stuff like that. Like I can enrich my life by congratulating someone for getting a massive part in a play. If they've gone through this entire process of auditioning and then right at the end they finally get the part, I go and see their opening show and then they knock it out of the park. Me having the viewpoint of free will and not being like that was always going to happen and he didn't have any say in whether or not he was going to be there enriches my life in the fact of I gain so much more emotion from that moment. I think there's a difference in your I don't want to quantify emotions, because I do think everyone has different thresholds for their emotions. Like your happiest compared to my happiest is the same. We're both the happiest we've ever been, but it could be a lot less if you were to take the exact same quantity of happy and put it into me. Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't know if I'm making a lot of sense.
Are you saying it's relative based on the person?
Yeah, and being
and you're saying your
having-
your relative maximum happiness is going to be greater because you believe in free will. Is that what you're?
Yes,
Interesting. Yeah.
because
I don't see that.
because when I go and do things, I gain that extra understanding of he did all these things because he made the choice to.
Do you think of yourself in the third person?
No, I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about
The person on the cushion.
this other person. Yeah.
Gotcha.
No.
To answer your question, Liam, I think that, like I said before, effectively, I think that we live our lives in very similar ways, despite having a very different active belief of free will.
Mm-hmm.
I think the core difference comes down to the fact that at the end of the day, I feel like I have more of a sense of self believing in free will.
That's something that I would like to get your opinion on in a moment, but the big difference that I've come to is the end that you pursue. I would like to know what that is. And what I mean by that is, if I had to put one word, I'd say fulfillment. And the thing is, I can't fathom fulfillment on the basis of no free will. On the basis of what you were talking about with this kind of on how the end of the no free will spectrum is that, cold, barren space. But even just in that range, if you've separated emotion and responsibility from this equation from the timeline of events, where is the fulfillment? What I pursue is the end that I strive for is based in free will.
So I had a moment while you were talking with this that I realized something I need to add to be able to make this argument work that I think actually helps understand it. I think without any meaning at all, it's meaningless. I think you guys are correct about that. It doesn't really matter. I could stab you or not stab you. I don't think it really matters. I think at some level, and this is at least for me personally, I think the basis of everything is an arbitrary decision that I prefer humans to not suffer. And I think that's biologically baked in. I think, okay, maybe humans, evolution is just a biological process of going over time.
In order to preserve the species, you
exactly
should have compassion so that those around you don't feel isolated.
Exactly, and I think that's the basis of almost every decision I make, is that I just want humans to suffer less and I want humans to do more. And I think that's like an emotional feeling. I think it goes with empathy. I think it goes with everything. Mm-hmm. I still see that as like a biological thing. I still see that as an arbitrary. It's not really arbitrary because it's decided by the fact that if I didn't have that, if everyone was psychopaths, I don't think we'd work well as humans. So it's just biologically it ended up that way. So I think that's the core of everything, and I still don't think it needs free will because I think it just comes from this idea that we're going to live better as humans if we believe this way. And it happens to work with my emotions. I think emotions are a chemical process that are really helpful in this case because they align with almost everything in this case because they align with the fact that I want humans to do better. And my emotions are trying to point me in that direction, but I'm still able to recognize them as that.
Can I present a question to everyone?
I would love for you to present a question to everyone.
Why does free will have to be an overarching theme for everyone? Why can't Liam, since he believes in the fact that there is no free will, he doesn't have free will, and since I believe I do, I do. If he is living his life in a way in which, like, he believes there's no free will, why can't he just not have free will then? And I do.
I mean, what if you say you're a tree?
What?
You can.
No,
I just don't think it matters. No, you don't see that at all.
It's a conscious.
No, I think he means like turning it on and off. Like,
yeah.
Whether you choose to kind of resist or whether you're just kind of going with the flow of events.
I don't think I'm resisting anything.
Well, I think that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
I think he's saying you shut off your free will.
Yeah, I don't see how that could be. I mean, like, because I'm saying when I look through all my day-to-day life, I can make all the decisions you guys make, and I feel like I can logically defend there not being free will in any of it.
And this kind of goes back to the fulfillment aspect I was talking about, but also something that I thought about mentioning earlier, but it's like my understanding of free will. I do, because we've talked about it as this kind of overarching thing, but the general way that I treat it and I think about it is this kind of like a microcosm where it's like my free will, because it is hard to place it in the greater whole.
Yeah.
Is because like something I thought about mentioning earlier was Descartes' meditations with I think, therefore I am. The easiest and the most fathomable and defendable position is on yourself. It's easiest to understand free will in reference to myself. It's hard once I put myself into the greater society. And that's where I like the fulfillment perspective, because fulfillment within oneself starts with oneself and bettering oneself. But as soon as you're placed into a greater whole, that grows And then there's fulfillment within your community, within your social sphere. And you can better yourself, you can grow and interact with these people. But I think it starts from oneself. And that's where I have centered my concept of free will, is in that local entity that is me.
Sure. And I don't